So, what we're trying to do is to save the story of the big picture on camera because it's a growing entity and will become very, very big and hopefully very popular all over the world. And now it's time to go through the things that have happened up to now. The big picture was started 4 years ago in a small Austrian town called Fordenberg. It's a place where I live. The Nobel Peace Prize laureate Rigoberta Menchú was here as a visitor to an organization which I was the co-founder of. And she sent us two artists from Guatemala. This was the well-known Abraham Batzin and Eddie Serrat, who are both very professional artists from America, South America. And they stayed here and worked in Fordenberg, a small alpine village, for 3 weeks. They painted the two paintings. There was no idea of what was going to happen now. But something very touching happened. This young man, Ali Abouza from Afghanistan, he came into the place where they were painting and he was very upset because he had seen the picture of this child that is iconic photograph all over the world, and he saw the picture of this dead child on the beaches of Turkey. Now, as we all know, in 2015, there was a huge refugee crisis when 1.5 million refugees came to Europe, and this was one of the victims of this. And the two artists from Guatemala, they helped him to paint this first painting from Afghanistan. Now, as you see, the paintings are all joined together across the corners, and the idea is that the painter who paints this, it goes on to be an eternal painting of many, many different artists. So Ali painted this painting, and I haven't heard of seeing him for many years. He's disappeared off the world. And then the next paintings come from a refugee center in Leoben. Leoben is the second biggest city in Styria, the Styrian capital, this is one of the 9 provinces of Austria. And the refugees, there was hundreds and hundreds of refugees who were sleeping in an old building market. And the guy who was running it from the Austrian Innen Ministry, he said he would like to do something with the refugee children. So artists went and they helped paint some paintings with them. So these paintings came from the refugee camp in Leoben, these 4 that are here. 5 paintings that are here came from refugee camp in Leoben. They came from artists from Serbia, from Georgia, and also from Syria and Hungary. The big picture was born at this stage. We thought, hey, it looks really good. In a big empty hall, we thought this looks really good. It could get bigger. The idea was then to try and get from as many countries in the world, as many artists as possible to join the big picture, but at least one from all of the 197 countries that are recognized by the United Nations as being individual countries on the planet, but also the indigenous peoples, the Aborigines, the North American Indians. We find it very important to get in contact with these peoples too, and to have them join the big picture. So, after that, I went to Graz, to the Caritas Academy in Graz, and some students from the Caritas Academy, they're all learning to be social workers. They contributed the next series of paintings to the big picture. Up to here, we just had 2 professional artists involved, but from here on in, we began to get noticed by many, many very, very professional people. One of them is a lady from Trefeiach in Austria, and she's called Johanna Leopold. She's a very professional lady who's worked for many years as an artist, and also has her own a range of designs of clothes. She designs clothes for American companies, and she painted this painting, which is called Europe is Cowering. People at the time were afraid of what would happen with the refugee crisis. There was all sorts of rumors going about rapes and all things. Afterwards, a lot of it was proved not to be true, but the people tried to damage the situation and make it very difficult for these people to settle in Austria and Germany, and it was a really big crisis. But with every crisis, there's also good people and also the opportunity to make the most of a bad situation. So, Johanna Leopold worked with some refugee boys from Afghanistan and from Syria and from Iraq, and she painted a series of paintings with them. And this is her series of paintings with these guys. Here's a photograph from Emil, Nazir, and Saeed from Afghanistan, who helped to paint these next 3 paintings. Then we had our next very famous local artist. She's also not just locally famous, but she comes from the locality. Her name is Andrea Tomic, and she has been a professional artist all of her life. And she painted this painting for the big picture and worked with these 2 artists. This is a young refugee from Iran and one guy from Gabon. to paint the next series of paintings. I would like to bring your attention to this painting here. This young man crossed the ocean in such a boat, and his friends were drowned, and he kept his head above water for 2 days. And that depicts his struggle to get to Europe, away from the wars in Afghanistan. So the next painting is from a very well-known Austrian writer, also an artist, Walter Dorvatl, and his painting is all, it looks like, to me, like there's goodness in people and all the protection of nature, and I find this very moving picture. He's also the godfather of my son. A man from my hometown in Ireland called Ronnie Fitzgerald painted this painting, and many Irish people know what it's like to be discriminated. Irish people were hated in England, and this sign says, "Help wanted, no Irish need apply." It also there was also signs back in the 60s, "No Irish, no blacks, no dogs can sleep here," and that sort of stuff. There was a lot of racism against Irish people. So we have been victims of racism ourselves, so we know what it's like to be victimized. And this was a painting from a very well-known Irish artist called Ronnie Fitzgerald. Next painting came from Austria, and it's beautiful. I think it's a very nice painting. It's called "A Tree at Sunset," and I find this very inspiring. Now we become very international. As we go into the next round of the big picture, we will see that the artists are starting to come from India, from Africa, from all different countries. So we're going to walk around the corner for the next painting. I spent hours and hours and days trying to contact artists from all over the world. And luckily, I managed to contact this man. His name is Abu Fofana. He's become a very good friend of mine. I've never met him, even though he was invited to visit us twice with the Nobel Prize winner, Lima Bowie, who was also here as a visitor. And she wanted to send him here to Austria to work with Abraham Batzin from Guatemala and Eddie Sarat. But as most people know, there was an outbreak of Ebola, so he couldn't come. But he sent this wonderful painting, and it's called Food Business, because you see, lots of people have a lot. The thing is, are they prepared to share it with others? So I find this very depictive. And like all African paintings, everything, art, it's very colorful and very lively, but also very sad. This is a painting from my good friend, and I'd just like to say hello to Abu Fofana from Liberia. I hope we meet someday, Abu. You've been a great friend through the years with this project, and I know that we will meet and work together in your country or here. Next picture is from a girl who has become very important for the whole project. Her name is Diana Davtyan, and she comes from the Ukraine. She's a very young girl who studied in Graz. She's done her master's studies in the academy in Graz. And she's a very versatile artist, but also a very talented person. And I asked her, would she paint the corners between the paintings for us? Because the idea was to send the paintings to the artist that he could paint to the artist before him and the one that comes after him. But that's logistically absolutely impossible to do. So I asked Diana, would she take the time to paint for us the corners? And she'd done it, and she's done a wonderful job. She's a very integral part of the whole project, and she is also the heart of the project. Thank you very much, Diana Davtyan. Now we come to Slovenia, and a very famous Slovenian lady. This is Stanka Golob, and her art has got to do with nature and the colors, the natural colors of nature. All her paintings and all her drawings are all made from the sand and the gravel and the stones of Slovenia. There's no coloring here. These are things she finds in the rivers, she finds in the mountains, and she does lots and lots of work like this. She's a very, very great lady. And I played in Tolmin, in Sochital. Sochital is very famous in Slovenia. It was the first time that poisonous gas was used in the war. And this is a beautiful district with a very tragic past, and she lives in the middle of Sochital. It's an unbelievably beautiful place. And this great lady works and lives there, and she was a big help to us when I was there. And she painted on the square and made this very popular in Slovenia. Next artist is Nodobor Yoryor from Liberia. Now, this man and his family are seemingly wealthy in Liberia, as far as I know. They import cars and other things into Liberia, helping to build up the economy. And he is also a very, very good artist and a nice person. I've talked to him on the telephone a couple of times. He is also the president of the Nigerian Arts Council, and he sent us this painting for the big picture. And this painting is called Preparing for the Festive Season. And you see the people are colorful, happy, there's lots to eat, and there's really nice atmosphere. So that's another painting for the big picture. The big picture was actually designed or thought not just to portray all the bad things in the world, but also the good, because there are many, many good things, and we only see a small corner of it for ourselves. We never look beyond our own little corner sometimes. We go on a holiday somewhere and we take the best impressions back, but many people struggle. In a world of plenty, many people have very little, so we should be happy with what we have, be prepared to share the more things that we have, or to give them to other people, and also be happy for people who do well and help people who are not doing so well. It's got nothing to do with morality. It's got to do with people who are opening up to each other and showing a bit of their world to each other. A lot of people live in poverty. A lot of people live in war zones. And the big picture was there to paint a portrait of the world through the eyes of artists from all different parts of the world and from all different situations in their lives. This is the beauty of the thing. It's not moralistic, and it's the only thing that we don't want in the big picture. No pornography, no slogans, and no politics as much as possible. So we move on from Africa again, and we come to a very well-known Austrian artist, Theresa Fauler-Nierat, who has won many prizes for her art. She's mostly a sculptor, but also does very well in painting. And this place is called Seeing Through. So this has looking through things, and you have to take time to look at this painting to get sucked into it. And you see you're looking like into a mirror, into a sort of a mumbled past. And she's also a very, very good friend of mine in the meantime, and I love this piece. Now, we have a lot of people in Ireland from many countries, and this is a guy I met through his wife. He comes from England but lives in Tipperary in Ireland, and I never even knew he was an artist. He's a very unassuming person, but he's a genius as an artist. He's a really, really great painter. And I told him about the project, and he came and he painted this for me. It's called the Churn Race, and Tipperary is famous for these churn races. And Michael Hunter sent this wonderful piece to the See the Big Picture project, and I'm delighted to have him in the project. He was our first Englishman in the project as well, so thank you, Michael Hunter. So now we come to a lady who, what shall we say, who is one of those who enjoys the best things in life, and that's the whole important thing with the big picture. She's a really great artist, and she's a very nice woman, and she's from India, living now in Austria with her husband, and she goes back to India very often, and she made this beautiful painting of this man. He's got a hard job. He sells roses all day, but if you look at the expression on his face, he looks like he's happy, he's content. Many of us are not content with a lot of things, and this is a guy who's just trying to get by, and he looks really happy, and I find this very inspiring, this painting from Anuradha Sarup from India. She's also helped us a lot with the websites, and has done a lot of work for the big picture, and we are eternally grateful to her. This is the work of many people. I'm the initiator, and I contact the people and try to make it work and try to finish the project, but I can only do so much on my own without the help of the artists, other people who just spend their time doing the website, making films, organizing this and that. I would never be able to finish this project, and I hope that I will be able to finish this project, because it's going to take another lot of years until it's really finished. But now you can see just how spectacular it has become and how colorful it has become. We move on to the next painting. This is from Dražan Pavlovčić, who's a famous artist in Croatia, and I just don't know, I just like this. It's just got this, it sucks you into this unrealistic world of color, of movement, of motion. And it's very inspiring just to sit here, watch the light disappear or watch the light come out of this amazing sort of astral scene. And I love his work, and I love the color, I love the movement in it. And also these lines, the color, the expression of his movement, and I find this an amazing piece. The next painting was sent to us by a man named Dani Garrido Tardillo from Spain, who is also an artist, and he's also a bit of an astronomer and a mathematician, and his painting has to do with the universal language. And universal language is not German, it's not English. The universal language is mathematics. And I find this absolutely very inspiring piece. And if you take the time to look at this, he's got a lot of philosophy in this painting, which I'm not going to go through now, but if you ever get the time to have a look at it, I can talk to you more about it now, okay? Thank you very much to Spain. So, Duško Abramuzic comes from the beautiful place of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and it says these things are important, to enjoy life. And Duško, I find this very these beautiful lakes, this beautiful woman. I think it fits into the thing. We live in a world where beauty should be put on a pedestal and not on the market. And I find his piece very inspiring. I have to say about the next lady, a lot of what happened up to now would not have been possible without her. Her name is Tatiana Mijatovic, and she comes from Slovenia. This is a lady who says this, and it happens. She knows everybody in the Balkans, and she's done so much for the big painting, and she is our first real international ambassador, and I'm going to give her that title now here officially, because she contacts other artists, tells them about the project, gets them to send a painting, helps with our exhibitions. She's organised an exhibition for us this April 2020 in Zagreb. She also organised an exhibition for us in the beautiful town of Radenski in Slovenia, and she's done so much for us. And I think Tatiana, this is probably a small little token of appreciation, but this is yours too. You know, you've put so much heart and work into this, and without people like you, I would never be able to finish this project. Thank you. Another man from Guatemala is Jose Ramirez. Now, Jose had a problem with this painting is much bigger than we needed, but it's so spectacular, I couldn't. He said, okay, cut the pieces off that you don't want, but how could you cut this painting? So the rest of the painting is at the back. And Jose, I don't know, this is something spectacular. This is typical, for me, South American. It's movement, it's color, it's vision. It's these little things that make a big difference. I don't know. I find it very, very spectacular and nice to watch. And I'd like to say a very thank you to Guatemala, to Jose. And now we have a painting from Russia. And this is a lady called Natalia Niederbach. And this painting is a typical Russian painting with colors, with movement, but also with these strings. And it's called String Games for Two People. So use your imagination. What would you do in a situation like this? You're both on opposite sides of the spectrum. You're covered in this beautiful yellow, relaxing color. And you've got games to play with each other. I suppose you could say it's political games, it's personal games. It's something to do with the whole thing of human interactions. And I think she's captured it very well in this wonderful piece from Russia. Our next painting comes from Slovenia, from Darina Malinovic, and it's called The Fighter. Now, if you look at the power behind this animal, you can see this is a guy who's not going to take no for an answer. If you go to these parts of Slovenia, the mountainous parts of Slovenia, you'll see so many real big wild goats, and this is one of these wild goats, and they are powerful, and this thing is called The Fighter. This is a guy who won't give up. I suppose it's got to do with the spirit of the region too. In the mountainous districts, you have a hard life, so you can never give up, and this is called The Fighter. And up to now, the whole thing is a conglomeration of paintings from many, many nations, and it grows and it grows and it grows. Our next painting comes also from the United States and from Liberia, from a beautiful lady called Matsuvi Wiles. She was also supposed to come here with the Nobel laureate, Lima Bowie, but it didn't happen because of the outbreak of the Ebola virus. She and Abu Fufana were supposed to stay here for a couple of weeks and work with the Guatemaltecan artists, but it never happened. But she sent us this wonderful, wonderful piece, Yin and Yang of African, and I don't know, it's just a spectacular and amazing piece. Now we have Radhika Surana, who is not just a very, very famous artist, but she's a very famous singer, and she was in Austria. She came here and played and sang some Indian songs for us at a concert in Leoben, at the second exhibition of See the Big Picture, and I love this piece. This is called the Sadhu, and it's just an untitled. She's untitled the painting, but I call it Sadhu. This holy man, these attractive, old, wise sort of personality, and the beautiful madness of India. I think this has captured the Indian culture in very, very many ways. Also, the rickshaw as part of the whole thing, and I'm amazed at this piece. I love this piece. Thank you very much, Radhika. One day, I got this very nice letter from this beautiful lady from Georgia called Mariami Akobatazi, and she said she would like to join the Big Picture. No, I didn't know anything about her, and suddenly this painting arrived at my house, and I thought, oh, come on, this is beautiful. It's got to do with the simple things in life, you know, food on the table. Sometimes it looks like these people are alienated from each other, but for me, it doesn't look like that way at all. Sometimes it's not necessary to say words. Sometimes you could be happy in the presence of other people, with food on the table, light, warmth, and often you don't have much to say. Each person lives their own life. You don't have to be constantly involved with the lives of somebody else, but you be content and you can be happy around the serenity of people. And I find this a very serene painting, and it's one of my favorites, by the way. Now we also have a lady from Liberia who now lives in the United States, and her name is Berlina Jabui, and she sent this typical African madness again. Colors, beads, shells, designs. This is Africa. Africa is just an amazing place, and the artists are just as colorful as the country. And I love this piece, and she sent it to me maybe 2 years ago. And yes, as you see, the big picture is growing. Then we went to a school for children who've got problems, with ADHD and different sort of symptoms. And Diana Dafty and the young artists from the Ukraine work with the children, and they came up with this madness here, which is amazing. These are the kids, they're showing their world, they're showing their days off, they're showing the colors, the fish, their life. And I think children are always, doesn't matter how good or how bad a painting is, children always liven things up. And I think that's the reason why this painting is an integral part of See the Big Picture. As I said, we have many professional artists, but also many young people and young artists who are very welcome to join us. The next painting is one of those. One day, a friend of mine came and said he has a painting from Nepal. And the story of this painting is, these children, there was a big earthquake in Nepal a couple of years ago, and these children, their school was completely destroyed. And a guy called Günther from Austria got the money together to help them rebuild the school. So they sent the painting to See the Big Picture. And I'm amazed at this. I think it's great. These children have their place to go back to school in. They're out playing football. They're enjoying themselves in the beautiful surroundings, the mountains of Nepal. And I think this is, people say to me, why did you put that into the big picture? And I say, why not? Our next artist comes from Macedonia. It's an untitled piece. And it's also it looks like duster, but it's like people who are sort of crammed together in not such a happy situation. And her name is Saskia Mitrova Jordanova from the beautiful country of Macedonia. And she does a lot of design for LPs from artists, especially from heavy metal artists. And I don't know, this piece is sort of moving. It's a little bit terrifying, but it's also, I don't know, it's just, it doesn't matter. This is a part of the big picture, and it's one of those paintings you have to stop by and think, what's she doing here? But it's an amazing piece, very well done, and I'm very grateful to her that she joined us in the project. So, in the last couple of years, we've had a lot of exhibitions, also international exhibitions. The first exhibition was in Graz, and this was done 2 years ago. The second exhibition was in the city of Leoben, the second biggest city in the province of Styria. Our third exhibition was in Tolmin in Slovenia. The fourth one was in Radenski in Slovenia. And the fifth one was in the Ukraine. And the sixth one also in the Ukraine, in Konotop and in Kiev. And the eighth one is here in our own home in the Simon Mühle in Trofajak. Our next exhibition at the moment that's fixed is in Zagreb, in the European Dome in Zagreb. And then we've got lots of invitations to travel the world. The idea for the big picture is that we have it here in its own home, we exhibit it here when it's possible, and we send it to as many countries as possible as it grows into the huge painting it should become. Our next painting comes from an artist from Slovakia, who also lives in Austria. Her name is Katarina Sveta. She makes wonderful sculptures of the Holy Barbara, which is the patron saint of miners in Austria. And this piece is like, it's got there's a slogan on this one. This sign, the barcode, everything we do, everything we touch has got a barcode on it. So we're being monitored in certain ways, and she started warning us about beware of the third world order, of being monitored, categorized, and looked at, scrutinized too much. The glass human beings, most of us shouldn't become like that. I think there's great positive things about technology, but also things that are not so positive. And the idea that you're constantly watched and you're constantly monitored doesn't really appeal to me. Then some artists worked together with school children from Leoben to make the next series of paintings. And you can see this one is called The Anchor in Life. Then this one and you can see that the kids work together, or the young people work together with the artists to display their vision of the life that they're living at the moment, about women's rights. This one is about things in life that keep you happy and keep you sane and keep you alive. And this one is about, for example, things that make you happy as well. and try to stay away from violence and away from people bullying you and stuff like that. Sort of little warning things. Our next painting comes from Belgium. Also in these paintings there are many countries involved. Austria, Croatia, there's Slovenia, Slovakia, lots of students from different countries involved. This one is from an architect from Belgium, and this is the scene as an architect would see it through a glass window on a rainy night in the city, and I find this amazing. The light's very well captured, and I think it's a beautiful painting to watch. And then if you compare the metropolis, the scene from a metropolis, from a city lights on a rainy night, to the wonderful painting from India, the lotus flowers on a lake and a pond, very relaxing, very nice to look at, from this lovely lady from India called Sujata Dere. We move on now to the United States of America. And the next artist is called Kelly Miller. He comes from the United States of America, and this is his painting. In all things that happen in the world, there's the flower of life. Mathematics is the international or the world language, but everything has its own structure. Nothing happens because of chaos. In nature, everything is structurized. Also, everything around us is a structure. There's a structure in the DNA of people. There's a structure in the makeup of trees, of grass, of mountains. And there's also this structure in the new technology that are trying to reconstruct a sort of a civilization-made structure and not a natural structure. We're trying to overcome nature, be as creative as nature. We've done a lot of things as regards technology, communications, but we still have an awful lot to learn. Nature is the biggest master, and we will never really beat it. But this is the flower of life, and our own attempt to become as whole and as saintly or as creative as nature that is around us. Next picture is from Colombia, and this is just a guy having fun with shapes and colors. And I'd like to say hello to Chavaro Avale from Colombia. He has an untitled piece, and I don't know, I like this. I like this series just came together like that, like abstract. It wasn't planned that it came like that, but it just happened to come from America, Colombia, England, and from Nigeria. Next one is from Lewis Blake, an English artist and an architect in Leopold. He's just moved to Austria there recently, and I find this painting very, very inspiring. It looks like the roofs over the city of Graz through the eyes of an artist and an architect, and it's amazing. This one is from Nigeria, from Janet. She's a teacher. I've met her one time actually, and it's just her life. It's just crazy. It's colorful. It's moving. There's all sorts of things happening in it, and she's just depicting her life like that, and I find it very, very nice to look at. Next painting comes from Ireland. It's one of the first ones we got, but it's never really fitted into this because it's the only oil painting we have, and it's called The Home I Left Behind. And this is from a guy called Jim McKee, who is very famous in Ireland. His wife is a very well-known writer in Ireland as well. And if people who know Ireland know, you can see these scenes in many places, especially in the West, where during the hunger and times of trouble, millions and millions of people left the country to go away. And you can still see the fallen down houses. You can still see the lonely roads, and you can just imagine the people that used to live there and the lives they had. And this is called The Home I Left Behind from Jim McKee. Our next painting comes from Iraq, and this is from a guy called Ali Oghalali, and his family were very famous in Iraq for doing stained glass windows. Lots of work for the Catholic Church, even if they were Muslims, but they lost everything in Iraq during the war, and he had to move away from Iraq. And this is some of the paintings, some of the places he's been to: Egypt, to Pisa, Taj Mahal, all famous places in the world where he's been to. But somehow you have the feeling he misses the country he comes from. He misses his hometown, his home country, Iraq, the cradle of civilization that is completely destroyed in certain parts due to man's stupidity again. And I'm very grateful to him for sending us this piece. Next artist is Isabella from Freinstein, who happens to live not far from here. And she is a lady who is making lots of waves in the art scene at the moment. She's got this amazing style. Her paintings and her designs are selling very, very well. And she still had the time to give us this painting, or to give us the loan of this painting for the big picture. And you see, it's all to do with telephone and handies. It's called Your Time is Bordered by the Borders of Time. And we spend so much time on the mobile phones that we're forgetting the time is passing us by. And I find this very depictive, very creative, and I love her work, by the way. Then, next artist is a photographer who comes from Hungary. There are two ladies. One comes from Hungary, and the other lady from Australia, but they work together as professional artists, and they do a lot of work in hotels, designing hotels, and the paintings and the exhibits in hotels. And these are photos. And there's particles on wholeness. This is this amazing photograph. I don't know how she done it or how she done this, but I find it just amazing. The next one, this is from Anita Vince, who comes originally from Hungary, and her photographic partner, Eva Banet from Australia. And this piece is called Ocean of Hope. Open amounts of water, but this is water of hope. And I think she's just wishing that we would just move on like that, because you never give up hope and keep moving on. In spite of all the bad things that are happening, the world is also a good place. This painting is rather tragic. It's from a guy called Bruno Toya, who was a refugee. And he left his wife many years ago in Angola. And then in the refugee crisis, they managed to meet each other again. And this is where the paradox happened. She's a refugee in Switzerland and he's a refugee in Austria. And now they would like to be together again, and they can't. They didn't want to be together before, and now they want to be together and they can't be because it's not allowed to cross the borders. And I find this, it's called I See You Again. I find this very tragic in some way. They love each other, they found out that they love each other, and now they can't be together, and when they were together, they couldn't love each other. So it's very, in some way, it's a very sort of autobiographical painting. And I met this man, he's a very nice guy, and I never met his wife, but I hope to someday. Next is from a local artist called Annalisa Thurnherr. And it's called I'm Beaten and I'm Tortured. And it's a person, it could be Abu Ghraib or one of these prisons where people were tortured in, or where tortures that go on all over the world behind closed doors in political countries in political troubles. But it could also be personal torture, that you keep yourself in a scene of negative emotion. And this is one of those paintings, I don't know what really to say about it, but except it's very well executed. I like the colors, I like the emotions behind it. Next painting came from Canada, from Luc Allen. Luc Allen is a well-known cartoonist in Canada, and it's called La Fleur Noire, or the Black Flower. He gave me no explanation to this one, but if you look at it, it just seems to stand out. First of all, because of its size, and secondly, what is a black flower? And although sometimes I sit here watching it in the evening and think, it's very nice. It's a very, very great painting, and it does a lot for me. So now we move on to a painting from a mother and son pair called Matilda and Robert Berger. And this is a scene, to me it looks like something like the Ponte Vecchio in Italy or something, but it's some just fantasy scene that Robert Berger had when this river flowing through a town, and on one side you got this sort of lineage, like something is very clear, and here you've got a little bit of chaos involved. And his mother painted the bridge between the two. So it seems to be the sort of attempt for a mother and son to communicate with each other through knowledge, and also through a certain form of unstructured chaos. And I find this amazing painting. Next one is from an artist from Fordenberg, where I live. And this guy is a tragic story. When he was 19, he was lamed, and he's 60 years of age now, but he was lamed in a motorbike accident. And this is what he sees when he looks outside his door. I never heard of him. And a friend of mine said, hey, this guy's a good artist. So I went and visited him, asked him would he join the project. He didn't want to, first of all. And I thought, hey, come on, man, this is beautiful what you do, you know. And this is him sitting in his wheelchair, looking across the flowers up into the Fordenberger Moor. This is where we live. And this hope, this apples and this ripeness, in spite of his handicap, I think he's a guy with a great spirit, and he can still see the good things in life. But you can also feel his sort of longingness to be back on the top of the mountains again. And I'd like to say a very, very great thank you to Joseph Getter for this painting. And at the end of our exhibition in the Simon Mühle in Trofajak, this painting came in from a guy called Zlatko Kranjic from Croatia. He's a well-known writer and artist in Croatia, and he has invited us to exhibit now in the European Dome in Zagreb in April. And he will get some artists there to help us get more paintings for the project. And he will also be the person who will take the project into the publicity-wise into the media in the district of in this district of Croatia, and I'm looking forward to working with him, and I'd like to say a very, very great thank you to him for his piece. So the next 7 paintings have a great story behind them. In the summer, I went to Ukraine as part of an organization called Summer School, Transart Summer School in Konotop. And the idea was to bring art and art therapy to the people of Konotop. Konotop is a town of 90,000 inhabitants in the Ukraine, and the people have beautiful nature, but the economy is not so good. And when we were there, I had the great opportunity to work with young artists. I had an artist with me, or she was with the project. That's Veronica Trier from Graz, and she worked with these 7 young artists from Konotop, and they painted 7 wonderful paintings, and these are the paintings that you can see here. They are not in the exhibition at the moment because they are on loan to the Sacred Heart Church in Graz, who have their own gallery, and they're on exhibition in Graz to try and raise some money for the artists from Konotop. They want to study art, and I think these paintings are amazing. If you just look at the detail, it's unbelievable. So basically, that's the end of the big picture for the moment, but there are paintings on the way from Brazil, Montenegro, there are paintings on the way from Japan. We're in contact with people from many, many different countries, and the big picture grows and grows. As I said, I was the initiator. It was basically my idea, but I'm the guy who tries to finish the whole project. I'm the power behind the project, but that's my job. There are so many other people who do so much behind the lines, who keep this moving, who give their time, their energy, their expertise. I couldn't spend hours. I could spend hours naming them all, but I won't do that. There's only a couple I would like to mention. Is Michael Domian, and my daughter Maeve, Edwin Reiter, the guy behind the camera here. Then you've got Julia from Poland, who was our EVS volunteer from Poland. We've got Karen Riedel. We got Andy Sprung. There's so many people. I hope I haven't forgotten anybody. You will not be forgotten in the documentation of the big picture, because we try to document as much as we can, because it's going to be a big story when it's finished. It's going to be a major world story. And I hope that someday we will all sit together and look at the big picture as a finished project and look through the story of the big picture and find out it has traveled the world. It's a world project. And the idea is when it's finished, it should be exhibited in some big place like European Parliament or United Nations building, and money should be collected for the big picture that on a yearly basis then will be given back to the artists for projects in their countries. So many of these people have lots of projects. They're very well organized socially, do a lot of work in their communities, and I think when this is finished, it's going to be wonderful. I think there's nothing comparative to this anywhere in the world at the moment, and we need your support. We need people like you who are looking in at this to help us. We need donations, we need artists, anything you can help us with, because this is something for people, done by people, motored by people, and powered by people, and it will be done for people, not for profit. So that's our stand at the big picture at the moment. I'd like to thank you for your time, and I hope you will support us in the future. Thank you.